Are you ready to know 5 Instagram story ideas you can actually post every single week without it feeling repetitive? That is exactly what I'm going to share in this video so you can get started with posting consistently to your stories on Instagram. First up, we do have a free Reels quiz all about discovering your next reel idea. So if you're also interested in growing with Reels, that link will be in the description to get started with creating an Instagram Reel. And now let's go ahead and talk about idea number 1 for your story. So idea number 1 is to do a weekly Q&A. This has actually been something I implemented pretty recently into my own content strategy when it comes to my Instagram, is doing a weekly Q&A with my audience. As my audience has grown, this has become even more fun and even easier to do on a consistent basis and to really connect with my audience, for them to ask questions, to see what they're wondering, and also it gives me a lot of ideas for types of content that I should make in the future on my account based on the questions people are asking. So I have started to do this every single Wednesday, and I call it Wednesday Q&A, where they can ask me any questions that they want, and it's a really great way to just build engagement and also community and feel like your community can talk to you and you can talk back to them, and for them to get used to chatting with you and asking you questions, and to also just answer questions that people are wondering. I have found as well, just think about your own user behavior with the people that you follow on Instagram. You probably feel more connected to those who do some sort of like Q&A or something like that, where you can really interact with them and have them answer what you're wondering. So I recognize that for myself. Like, I loved following other businesses and creators that were doing this, and I feel like I got to know them way better when they did Q&A on a consistent basis. So I started implementing it into my strategy, and it has been awesome. And the engagement is so high based on or compared to other types of stories that I do. So I really encourage you to give it a try if you haven't before. Okay, so number 2 is to link to other types of content you're creating on other platforms. So if you know anything about me, you know I love the idea of diversifying how you're showing up online. So not just showing up with something like Instagram that's more short form content, but also creating a good amount of long form content. So this can look like YouTube videos, blog posts, different things like that. Or even if you are showing up and finding in, short form content, so maybe you're making videos on TikTok or you're creating Pinterest pins, you can repurpose that almost and link to those other types of content from Instagram, especially if it's a type of content piece that you're not going to share on Instagram. Like, I don't share my YouTube videos upload them directly to Instagram. So a great way to push my Instagram audience to YouTube is to link it in my stories. And you don't want to go too overboard with this. If you're constantly linking things in your stories, it'll actually hurt your story views, because Instagram doesn't like it too much when you're constantly pushing your audience to get off of their platform, because they want to keep people on their platform. But this can be a really cool thing to incorporate just into your weekly rhythms and what you share on stories. If you upload like a YouTube video every week or a podcast every week or a new blog every week, link it on your stories. It could be as simple as one story like slide that links to the content piece, or it could be something, 3 or 4 slides you're explaining what it is and then you're linking to the content. So there's really a lot of different ways you can do it, and it can be a really great way to consistently show up with stories. The third idea is to share a behind the scenes of you working on your brand or business. And so this one, there's really a lot of different ways you can do this and show yourself. It'll really depend on like your brand or business and what it is and what you do. For example, if you are a product-based business, you can show yourself packaging products, creating the products. If you are a service-based business, show yourself working with clients. If you are maybe like me, a content creator, and you create a lot of content, record yourself creating the content, share that behind the scenes. People love to get a peek into the creation process and to get kind of a look into like the raw and real of what that looks like. And so if you are able or willing to let them in on that process of you working on your business, working on your brand, doing the things that you do day in and day out, people find that so incredibly interesting. And one of my favorite ways to do this are time lapses. I'll actually put an example right here of a time lapse that I've created of me recording a podcast recently. And it's just a really easy way to show them something that you're doing. And I like time lapses because it goes really fast and it's really easy to keep people's attention with a time lapse, especially if you're doing something that might take several minutes or even like tens of minutes, right? Yeah. So like 20 or 30 minutes, you can show that in a really fast time lapse and potentially like break something down into 30 seconds to a minute long. So you can also use time lapses in like Reels, by the way. That's a really great way to show just like the processor, what you're doing. But this is also a really fun thing I love to share on stories on a consistent basis, because I do see a lot of great engagement on things like this and people just watching me do things. It's kind of funny, but it's just human nature. We like to watch people do things like that. Number 4 is to link to any free like email list downloads that you have, so like freebies. So I'm a huge fan of making sure we're using Instagram to actually grow our business, right? At the end of the day, like we want to make sure that it's sustainable for us, that it is a good source of revenue, that it is helping to bring in revenue into our brand or business. And so I love using stories as a way to share about free offerings. And I know on the back end, obviously they're free for someone to download, but on the back end, it's getting someone onto my email list, which is super valuable. And I know at a certain percentage, I'm going to convert people on my email list, right? And also to get, you can use those email list freebies to trigger email sales funnels that go on automatic. And so that's been a huge part of growing my business, is having those funnels in place, sharing about those freebies. And so if you're looking for different ideas for what to share on stories on a consistent basis, share those free downloads, share those free offers that you have, and obviously do it in a strategic way, and obviously not too often. Like we talked about, Instagram doesn't like it when you link to outside like links too often. But just because Instagram doesn't totally love it doesn't mean that we should never do it and it can't ever be beneficial. So if you're picking strategic times like once a week to share about something free that you offer, I think that's totally okay to integrate into all of your other content, and such a smart way to use your platform on Instagram to actually grow your business. The last idea is to share a screenshot of like a testimonial or review, or even like a DM you get from somebody who's loving your brand or loving your business, loving what you offer. This is a really cool way to share like social proof of, other people loving what you're doing and what you're putting out there. And so it can look obviously so different if you're a business owner, if you're more of a content creator. But if you're a business owner, like you can take screenshots, obviously ask permission first, make sure it's okay to share in your stories, but screenshots of reviews, or maybe a screenshot of an email that you get from a customer who's super excited about what you're doing, or share a DM that you're getting. And this can be just a really fun way to incorporate like what your audience is, how they're interacting with you, onto your stories. And yeah, to give you ideas for content you can share that's going to be really beneficial in growing your brand, and to grow that social proof and that credibility that you are, a trustworthy brand and business owner to be following and to actually make a purchase from. If you haven't yet, check out that free reel quiz down in the description. I would absolutely love to help you uncover what your next reel idea should be. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any questions about stories or anything you want us to cover in the future, be sure to drop a comment below. We've gotten more questions on Instagram stories lately, so I'd love to go ahead and make more content around Instagram stories soon for you guys to just learn more about stories and the kind of the strategies that go behind stories. So we would love to know what your questions are, and thank you guys so much. I'll be sharing another video next week on Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time as always, and I'll see you guys then. Bye guys.